Welcome. We have with us Afsan Chowdhury, journalist, researcher, commentator. Over the last few days, we've seen an influx of Rohingya refugees coming into Bangladesh. It appears that on the other side of the border, Myanmar government is carrying out nothing short of an ethnic cleansing. Is that right, Afsan bhai?
I would say if you look at the history of Myanmar, the complexity is about the Myanmar's construction of the self, what constitutes Myanmar. And I think there is, from outside, a general idea of one single Myanmar. That is probably not the case. There is a smaller Myanmar, which is like a core Myanmar, and then you have the Kachins and the Shan, and including the Rohingyas or the Arakanis. To the core Myanmar, this, for example, who control Myanmar, therefore means the military power. For them, these are outsiders. So with them, they are in war, literally. And they are at war with the Kochins, the Shans, the Karens, and all others. So Myanmar is constructed partly out of the colonial wars, the Indo-Burma, the Anglo-Burma war, and the leftovers of that Anglo-Burma war. To the Myanmar people, and because I have been in touch with them as a researcher, I think it doesn't even strike their imagination at these being ethnic cleansing, because they see these as outsiders. So they are basically saying to themselves that we are outsiders. But of course it creates a huge humanitarian issue. But it also happens because Myanmar, the way it is constructed, was about some people who are state and some people who were the core. So the Burmans and the Mons perhaps would constitute the core, and the Kachins and the Karens would be the fringe or the marginals. And the marginals would love to have their own state, and the Myanmaris would be saying, you are not Myanmaris. So there's a complexity about the formation, which is a legacy of the colonial era.
Right. So we've seen the border guards of Bangladesh trying to send back people, and some of the Myanmarese people, the Rohingyas who've successfully landed up here, they are seeking refuge and seeking shelter. Now, we could easily say we are already a very densely populated country, we are poor, we don't have resources, we are not rich enough to take this burden, and this is not our problem. Please go back. Where they would almost certainly die. Why is it not okay to do that?
Well, for several reasons it's not okay to do that. Firstly, these people are here because they have undergone immense suffering. To send them to go back, as you just said, is asking them to die. I don't think there is any doubt that they are going through immense suffering. Now, what are the countries around the borders where these Myanmarese people have been doing? The major population has perhaps come to Bangladesh, but also they've gone over to China and some bit to India. These are the three countries with which Myanmar has strong relationships. Now, the Chinese have for the first time have really been very strong about it. And they have said, we will defend the life, property, etc. of our own people, meaning that in the border areas there are clashes. And the China is standing up and saying, I'm taking a position, which they haven't done so. One. India is keeping quiet. Indians also has a Rohingya population. India is keeping quiet because the northeast is volatile, and from the northeast, several people actually operate from inside Myanmar. But when it reached a peak point, when there was a fight, when Indian soldiers died, India carried out cleansing operations, and Myanmar did not hit back. Obviously, it was respecting a superior force. We are seen of these three as the weakest. Now, Thailand, Thailand is also there. Perhaps other countries have bought, I'm not so sure. But essentially, we are seen as the weakest of the lot. And also because these people are seen as complete outsiders, and they are more close to Chittagong. So, looking back to 100 and 150 years of geography, you wouldn't be able to say that this is like one comprehensive country from which a group of people are being thrown out, like it was in 71. But it is not right for us to refuse it because it's a very humanitarian question. In 1971, when we suffered so much, we actually saved our lives by going and finding refuge in India. Now the politics has changed. Of course, the situation is very different. But we have to do both politics, international diplomacy, as well as humanitarian diplomacy. We seem to have left both of them out of our equation. As a result, we seem to be just recipient of Rohingyas coming over. And this has started as early as, I think, 1990 when I was working for the UN. And I was part of the program looking after the Rohingyas. And I saw politics was very much part of that at that time. And I remember Bangladesh was not a party, but Pakistanis were training insurgents for the Rohingyas, and the picture came out in Inkilab, and the journalist was chased by the security agencies. So obviously a lot of politics goes on, a lot of this goes on, but right now we don't have any politics about it. But we need to play the international diplomacy, which we have not done at all. I think it has been a major failure on our part.
Let me ask you another question from another extreme point of view. It would be completely imprudent to wage or perhaps trying to trigger a free Rakhine state movement from within the Rakhine, the Rohingyas that we have here. That had been the case many years ago with us. A neighboring country, in fact, helped the movement for a free country. How much impractical would it be?
Oh, extremely impractical, extremely impractical. There is no way we can think of doing this. But I think what we are not looking at, is even our own internal politics, is that Rakhine, this is what actually was attempted in the 1990s, to have a separate Rakhine state, which is the Rohingya Liberation Front, and several other groups were actually supported by Pakistan, the Middle Eastern powers, and other countries. So that failed, that didn't work. So clearly it doesn't work. Secondly, I think from 1990 to 2016, 26 years, the world has gone a major change, and the major change is China. You are not going to get anything done in Myanmar with which China doesn't agree. So let us face the fact, we can put pressure on several fronts, and these pressures have all got to be diplomatic, but we have got to accept the fact that we can put pressure, let us say, through Malaysia, which is very close to Myanmar. We can put pressure through Thailand, which is again close to Myanmar, trade-wise and otherwise, all the ASEAN countries, in fact, and we can put pressure to China, who is becoming emerging as our biggest friend. So in that case, we need to have that high-level diplomacy. This is not 1990. Calling the ambassador and scolding him and telling him, take back the refugees, will not work at all. Myanmars are very smart. They know exactly what they are doing. They're pushing all these people. They do not see themselves as insiders. And Bangladesh is actually losing in the diplomatic front. Humanitarian-wise, I would like to, just as you asked a very radical question, I will put a radical answer, is that I don't think population is an issue. Because even if there were coming 1 million of refugees, or 2 million now comes in, I was just reading Abul Barakat, who is very close to the government, saying that 10 million Hindus have left in the last 50 years. So if we are all sending out Hindus, we can easily accommodate some Rohingya. I don't think population is an issue at all here. I mean, we are sending millions. Indians have saying there are 2 crore Bangladeshis in India. If that is the case, how many Rohingyas are going to come anyway? Let's not argue on numbers. I don't think we win the numbers game.
So, within the Myanmar government, we know that Aung San Suu Kyi, she's a Nobel laureate, and she's heading the government, and yet she has said nothing.
I think she is not entirely in disagreement with the situation. That is one part. The other part is that the military continues to remain powerful. I was listening to our previous envoy to Myanmar saying that Bangladesh's problem has been it has tried to deal with it as a diplomatic issue when power in Myanmar was with the military. So we need to kind of educate ourselves through which channel we can go. Clearly, our voices is not going to make much of a difference in Myanmar. In Yangon, he's going to ignore our voice. They'll just send in some people. And the psychology is very simple. They will carry out an operation or two. A lot of people will flee, knowing it's possible to flee. And we have got a long historical time. Let's also not dumb down this question that we are linked to the Rohingyas. There is no secret about it. But we are saying it is their citizens. The point is not that. There is the humanitarian part. Should they be thrown out the way they have been thrown out? We should be asking UNHCR, we should be asking the UN and for supporting the Rohingya refugees. To refuse them is quite seriously unthinkable. I don't think we are that badly affected. I can't see our life being dramatically changed in the last 40, 50 years. There are many other issues with which we think is far more important questions which we are ignoring. And saying that the Rohingyas is caused a major devastation is not, it doesn't hold water. In that case, we need to play our games at the fronts where we can. We are not doing that right now.
So you've already answered my last question, which was that which was that how would it all end and whether we can actually keep on taking. And you've pretty much answered that we can indeed go on taking, given the number of people that we are displacing from
our own land.
Yes. So
I think
the numbers game doesn't work.
The game doesn't work. I think what it also matters is Bangladesh being able to play like a graduate in the world of nations and countries. So Bangladesh also needs to upgrade its diplomacy. If you just look at one thing, when the War Crimes Tribunal was going on, Bangladesh diplomacy did not do anything, and we were bashed by all these prehistoric human rights agencies. I mean, nobody listens to human rights agencies anymore. This went off. It's finished and done with Britain losing control. They don't exist. But we kept on being bashed by them. They went on. Our lobbyist, Toby Cadman, the great lobbyist, seemed to have done marvelous work. So I would ask, and I think everyone asks, what were our diplomats doing? The paid servants of the state doing? I think we really have a very rickety diplomatic structure who really are not aware of how to play the game in 2016. And I think that is very important. We need to focus on diplomacy. This is a reality, very unpleasant reality. It will not go away, but we need to have a strategy, large strategy. Calling over the ambassador and scolding him doesn't sound like a strategy.
Thank you very much, Afsan bhai.
Thank you.
And that will be all.